Bentornato! The international football is over and we are back to recap it all. Two massive wins, well, one bigger than the other, for the Azzurri. As always, welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory and I'm joined by my very good friend Adam. How are we doing, man?
Very good. And as you alluded to, Spalletti's back. He's back and with a vengeance, putting a lot of trust in this group of players. But they pull off some result in that first game. That was absolutely incredible. And yeah, I don't know if he could cap it off any better with another result against Israel. So, Rory, they're on cloud nine now, this Azzurri squad, right?
They are the least predictable team in international football. I do not know what happens with Italy. Every time they step out on the pitch, you're like, okay, let's see how this goes. Obviously, we're going to get into those games, the formations, the team selections, all the questions that came before the kickoffs, and the questions that were answered after the final whistles. And we will, of course, be talking about the return of Serie A, big weekend big weekend ahead. For the return of domestic football. So lots to crack on with and some other stories around international football as well. We're going to take a very quick break. Adam, are you ready?
Let's do this.
And we are back. Italy with two big games, two big wins, one win bigger than the other. Let's start away in Paris against the French. It was all looking a bit bleak before kickoff, Adam. There's lots of questions. People wondering if Spalletti had lost his mind. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on with the lineup. So just to kind of remind people, it was kind of a 3-5-1-1.
1-1.
So a three at the back of Calafiori, Bastoni, and Di Lorenzo. The midfield, this is what I found most interesting pre-kickoff.
Sure.
The midfield of Tonali, Ricci, and Fratesi is the middle three. Di Marco and Cambiasso as the wing backs. Nothing too kind of controversial there. But then the front line, of Pellegrini behind Matteo Retegui. Like before we get to the game itself, what did you make of it? Because that midfield three, I was intrigued, but I was not sure if it was just strong enough, right?
Yeah, I think when you look at that, you kind of fearing the potential worse for Italy. Because obviously, I think Spalletti doesn't really trust a three-man defence either. So you're kind of thinking, well, there's a lot of reliance on the wing-backs to do defensive duties as well as the creativity element. But like you say, obviously from a midfield perspective, you've got Tonali, who hasn't played a lot of football, Ricci, who, as much as he got a lot of hype and potential, obviously a lot of pressure on him. Fratesi not playing much. And then Pellegrini, we've spoken about with Roma, not really having a great start to the campaign. And a lot of question marks from my side as well, in terms of like, what does he actually do? And is that the right position for him? And the Retegui, I think, he deserves to be called up. But again, there's a lot of people that are questioning his ability as well. So very brave from Spalletti to put that trust, like I alluded to at the intro. But boy, was he rewarded because of the way that they approached it. And within 12 seconds, you're thinking the very worst.
Let's talk about this, because I think obviously the clip has done the rounds of Donnarumma not even having time to put his gloves on and him hugging, I think, the goalkeeping coach as the game is kicking off.
Yes.
Like the definition of not prepared. So obviously it's Barcola who gets the goal, and it's down the left. It's down France's left that he comes, like Italy's right, that the attack comes through, right? And I think this is where the first interesting point for me is in terms of the selection and where it kind of backfired with Spalletti. And I'm not the first one to say this, but is Di Lorenzo the best selection now as a centre-back when he's kind of a wing-back himself? It feels like Spalletti is just crowbarring him into this team because he's Di Lorenzo, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is a love child of Spalletti's. We know about his credentials from Napoli with Spalletti. However, yeah, obviously he didn't come off a great Euros. He was largely blamed for his defensive woes for the Italian national squad in that tournament. And then he gives away the ball cheaply to Barcola. He's not strong enough in the pass back, and inevitably, it let Bradley Barcola come in. and score what looks like a wonderful start for the French national team. And, you know, I think this is a lot of question marks aimed after this result at the French national squad as well as Didier Deschamps. But yeah, you're fearing the worst for Italy. But a lot of credit to the way they came back into it, right, Rory?
Especially with like Italy conceded super early against Albania as well in the Euros. Like this is something that it's becoming a bit of a trend, like that they're not really waking up immediately. So I think there was, and obviously at that point against Albania, Italy came in back into the game. It was the one performance in the tournament where maybe they looked like, you know, something. So they do have that spirit to come back. Like they are able to overturn. But yeah, when that first goal went in, I honestly, the notification on my phone was hilarious because I was coming home and it was kickoff goal. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what the hell happened? Like ran to Twitter, like, what the hell just happened? So how did Italy manage to stop this becoming what was going to look like an absolute demolition job?
I think really they started to get their foot involved in the game itself and dictate the rhythm of the tempo. I think there was moments where they just broke through the French lines through the laziness of the French at times as well. You know, Kante didn't cover himself in much glory in this particular match, but he wasn't the only one. You know, if we're talking from an offensive point of view, Griezmann, Mbappe really did struggle to make an input in this game. And that was very much testament, I think, almost to the way that the French approached it. I think they didn't think that this Italian squad would do much. And, you know, they probably thought, right, goal, let's just sit back. Let's not worry about this. But, you know, Samuel Ricci, what a performance from him. And Tonali as well. Like Tonali was the outstanding performance. Obviously, we will allude to that setup for DiMarco's goal, which was absolutely insane. Beautiful. Absolutely insane. But yeah, between the two of them, alongside Fratesi, because Fratesi does break up the play for one of his goals. I think it's actually his goal, if I remember rightly, where he breaks it up and it goes in the direction of Cambiasso, who then sets it up towards Fratesi for that goal. But yeah, between the three of them, they just sort of did the basics. They really just made sure that they were on top of the rhythm. And I felt like even with the wingbacks of DiMarco, who was very much criticised at the last Euros as well, you know, this was almost like redemption for a lot of that squad. You know, they had a lot to prove. But on the day, Rory, I thought they were absolutely superb with the approach. Credit to Spalletti in instilling that kind of trust, because I think it would have been very easy to have just dismissed a lot of them and just went, right, you're not fit enough for this squad, and then just gone with someone else. But yeah, I mean, it was a breath of fresh air because, you know, like I think everyone didn't think that would happen. And just the fact that he carried it on with the approach into the second game against Israel, granted, he did change around personnel, but again, the same kind of intensity was applied here and they knew what they had to do. They seemed organized. That was the difference. It felt like they knew what they had to do, right, Rory?
I feel like there must have been some like harsh words after the tournament itself, because I watched a really interesting interview on David Seaman's podcast today, weirdly, with Jorginho, and he was talking about Italy's performance in the Euros, and he just kind of slightly alluded to it, and he was like, you can have the best players in the world, but without the team spirit, you're not going to achieve something.
Yeah.
And he said, and with average players, but with the team spirit, you can achieve things. He said, if you look at our Euros win in 2021, we weren't the best team in the tournament, but we had the spirit, we had the know-how, we won the tournament. And he alluded to, I think, without directly saying it. And then if you look at our performances from the last Euros, we had a much better squad, but the team spirit there, the drive wasn't there. And you saw the markdown. So I think there might have been really harsh words within the squad itself. Now, obviously, Jorginho isn't even involved at this point, right? Like it's kind of, and right, I think rightfully so, right? He's not involved at this point, so I think there must have been a bit of an autopsy after that, and maybe Spalletti had to look back at what he was doing, look at the players he's selecting. Who do I need to get rid of? Who do I need to bring in? I think he still needs to I'm really excited about that midfield, the defense of Bastoni, Calafiori, and Buongiorno. I think that's going to be the back three that kind of the new BBC, as we are, as I'm sure we're not the only ones to call it. So I think I'm really excited about that. I just think he needs to get over this Di Lorenzo thing, or maybe Di Lorenzo has photos of him. I don't know. Maybe there's some I'm not sure what's happened.
But on his farm, basically.
Yeah, he needs to get over that. But I do like that he's willing to give the opportunities to a player like Samuele Ricci, who has been absolutely he's getting a lot of plaudits this year. Obviously, Torino have had a very good start to the season anyway, but he's a player I've liked since Empoli. He's a player that was good at Torino last year. So giving players like that opportunity is just but he's willing to no, I know this works. I just need to find the personnel that it works with and find that time. If Italy could perform in a tournament, I don't understand what happened. Because I think it's a really fascinating case with Tonali, because he's not played football for 10 months, right? And you have to remind yourself that he's not played for that long, because Newcastle fans must be absolutely just delighted and beyond excited that this is basically a new signing coming in, right? Because he looks like he has not missed a beat. It's not only that incredible little back heel that sets up DiMarco for that incredible left foot volley, right? But all throughout that game, it was the one touch passing, it was the in space, it was turning away from the press and keeping the you can tell that he's obviously been training with the under-21s or whatever. He's been working even harder while he's away to make sure that he comes in and he's just straight back into the team. Because I think a lot of people would have worried that what the long-term effect would be on that on his career, let alone the short-term effect. So I think it says a lot to him and his attitude and his work ethic that he's come in and made sure that he's in the condition that he can just come in and straight away he's almost the first name in the Italy midfield. It's an incredible performance from him, right?
Yeah, absolutely incredible when you think about the circumstances and the way that he applied himself. It felt like he's just given them the elevation now in terms of that's what you were missing at the last tournament. This is what I can bring to this game. And there was a lot of I think opinions on Tonali as well, in particular that maybe he doesn't fit the rhythm of the Italian national squad, that maybe he's too similar to the likes of Barella, for example. But actually you kind of saw that he can fit as long as he's got the right personnel around him. And it does create that bit of a dilemma for the national squad as well, because you think Barella wasn't involved in this particular match as well. What does that mean in terms of the way that he's utilized going forward? And I think there were some good things that was learned from this games. I think obviously Spalletti learned a hell of a lot. It'll be interesting to see how he approaches it going forward with it in terms of the personnel anyway. But they just, all of them looked sharp. They seemed up for it. They seemed like there was a kind of togetherness, as you allude to, from a team spirit point of view. But yeah, just even the way that in the adversity of everything, all the negativity that they've received in the press about the way that Italy approached it at last tournament, and in general over the last few qualification campaigns, the fact that Spalletti, I think if he'd lost this match against France and potentially not got a result against Israel, I think potentially we could be saying goodbye to Spalletti, because I don't know necessarily if he had a lot in the tank to kind of cover himself if there was some bad performances here. I think, when you've got someone like Max Allegri just around the corner that potentially could just come in and do a job, that was always going to be an issue. But yeah, fair play to him, because, like I say, he's had the balls to kind of play those individuals, to play and entrust that kind of style of football. And I hope, Rory, for his sake, that he actually sticks with it, because, he likes to tinker with things when it doesn't need tinkering.
I think the selection, you never know who's going to start for Italy. That's the issue, right? You never know who's going to start, because he does love, tinkering. But I think there is still the issue. We've got the defense, we've got the makings of the midfield with Tonali, Barella, and another. The wing backs kind of pick themselves between DiMarco and Cambiaso. I think the issue for Italy is still that attack and who the main attacking threat is going to be for me, because I think all their strikers are kind of a similar level of like a 10 goal a season striker at a team that aren't necessarily pushing for the title, right? Like you've got Retegui at Atalanta, you've got Kane at Fiorentina, and you've got Raspadori at Napoli, right? Now, I like all three of those players. I don't know if any of them have ever got beyond 15 goals in a season, really. And I think that is still, for me, who do Italy build that attack around? Obviously, Scamacca's injured, and that's an issue as well. But like the fact that he's out, and then all of a sudden, like, okay, who are we building this attack around? Like Spalletti needs to figure that out, right? Like who, if you're picking one now, currently, is it Retegui that you think is like the best option? Because I still think there's a part of me that wants to say Kane, but I know he's so flaky. Like who do you go for?
I think Retegui under Gasperini will just develop his game. I think he will become more all-rounded in terms of his abilities. He seems like he's being applied as the fox in the box, almost like just get me goals. Don't because I think there was a different role that was expected of him with Gilardino at Genoa. There was an expectation to run hard, work hard for the team. But when we've got the opportunities, we'll try and get the ball into the box and get yourself into the box. Whereas now I feel like he's just still maybe getting to grips with the way that Gasperini wants to approach it with Atalanta and his kind of game. But I think I'm going to put my neck on the line and say I think he will get 20 goals this season, Retegui. I think he will score the goals because I think he's already had an impressive start already. I think Atalanta still need to find their feet with the signatures that they have made. One player that I think we've forgotten about is Chiesa in amongst all of this. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to score a lot of the goals, but I think in the formation that he played, Spalletti, obviously he is that number 10. He's the player that can play just behind and offer that kind of different dynamic to the game, providing he stays fit, of course. And as you allude to, I think, look, Scamacca's had an opportunity. He did impress. I wonder whether he will be picked going forward, even when he does get recovered from his injury. The one that I'd like to see being given an opportunity, and I'm not necessarily saying he's going to score goals, but it's Lorenzo Luca. I think there is definitely a potential in terms of an impact off the bench. But if I was to say right now, out of the options that Italy have, it's got to be Retegui. I can't see beyond Retegui as someone that can go out and get the goals for Italy. And ultimately, look, historically, you don't necessarily have to be at the same caliber as your Del Pieros, your Christian Vieris. You just have to be a striker that's able to do it on the international scene, as far as I'm concerned. Retegui, as long as he gets a goal every match, look, that would be a phenomenal record for him.
It'd be an incredible record.
That's what he needs to do. So if he can do that, I think he's fine. I don't think his record is absolutely terrible in that respect as well. I would be curious, actually, looking at this now. I'm curious, actually, to see what is his record right now for the Italian national squad, because I don't think he's had it bad.
According to Wikipedia, 14 caps, 4 goals. So a goal every other, a goal 1 in 3, basically. If my maths is not terrible, Which it's a decent, fairly decent enough hit rate. But he's very lucky that Italy do have someone who has a fantastic record with the national team, and that is Davide Fratesi, who scores again, not only against France, but gets another goal again against Israel, which brings him to 7 goals in 21 caps for Italy. Considering he doesn't consistently play for Inter, often off the bench, not someone who gets a lot of minutes in the legs, he's kind of a key player for Italy at the moment, and he's really sharp. The finish in the Israel game was really very innovative, right? Very instinctive, right? Like kind of chested it into the far corner. He's a player I really, really like. I'm kind of excited about what he can do into this year if he actually gets the minutes in his legs and doesn't just come off the bench. But Spalletti seems to know how to unlock him, right?
Yeah, he just seems to put in these performances for the Azzurri squad. Like you say, the intuitive way that he scored the goal against Israel, just that kind of once kind of thought that he's going to just chest it into the net was just incredible bit of skill, if I'll be brutally honest. I think that's, not many players could do that. But like you allude to, he's got a phenomenal knack of getting goals and just being great when he turns up for the national squad. So he's become a real staple of that squad, an important player. And it's for Inter, it's really harsh that he's not able to get in that squad. But look, he's going to have to be even more superb to get into that squad. I mean, we're kind of talking about the likes of Zielinski not being able to break through at the moment, but the likes of Henrik Mkhitaryan, who must be like going on 39 now, he's pulling on these performances for Inter. And I think that's the difficulty that Fratesi faces, is that you have to be at a consistent level, but you have to overachieve what's in front of you right now. And I think it's very difficult for Simeone Inzaghi to somehow kind of drop someone in favor of him. I mean, Asllani as well. He's another one that's kind of looked upon as someone as a future prospect. But again, he can't get the game time, unfortunately, because the players in front of him are so much stronger. And I think that's the dilemma that they have to face. There was murmurs about Fratesi maybe moving on in this window, maybe on a loan deal and maybe as a swap deal with Chiesa for Juventus at the time. But look, those links haven't come to fruition. I would be very surprised if Inter decided to entertain those kind of talks. Personally, I think he is someone that's really highly thought of at Inter. It's just he's going to have to bide his time. I think he might just have to wait this season until someone has a injury and then comes in and maybe fills the void. But what an important player, and what a great player he is to have as well for the national squad. Just impact. Every time he comes off the bench for Inter, it feels like he has big moments in their shirt as well. So great player. The other player I wanted to kind of allude to a little bit, I said that the wing backs pick itself with Cambiasso, but in the Israel game, Belanova played at right back, and this is a player that Inter are going to kick themselves so hard that they've not picked this guy up. A really, really great performance from him. Again, now obviously Israel, right? Not a great team, but a really, really good performance from him. A very good start to the season from him as well. This is a player that, again, just gives Italy a bit more attacking option on that right wing, right? And if you've got him or Cambiasso that you can bring on, they're two very strong options. Yeah, strong depth down that right-hand side for Italy. I would say Belanova in this particular match, I wasn't necessarily too won over by this performance. I think there was some rawness. I think he did make some mistakes defensively. So that will come in time in terms of that ability to understand and maybe make the right decisions. But he is a threat. He is a huge threat with pace, with the kind of directness about his game as well. He's a strong lad. And like you allude to, I think we were all very surprised when Inter didn't decide to cash in and take him on from Calgary at the time. And the fact that Torino, took the gamble, brought him in under Juric's kind of tutelage. He pushed on his game, and he's got the move to Atalanta now. Again, with a grandmaster like Gasperini, it will just improve his game no end. So I think that's a fantastic bit of business by Atalanta. Good that he got the outing. Maybe it'll be good learning for him as well in terms of these are the abilities at a national squad level. This is the things that you just do the basics. That's what sometimes you forget, is that if you can just do the basics, that's a good foundation. And I think that's possibly where Belanova maybe works himself up too much in this game. But look, good positive signs again. That depth is incredible. Like we say, Cambiasso as well, a player that progressed last season, and he already looks comfortable in the Azzurri's shirt as well. So fantastic for the national side. Like you say, I think the real question is up top, and Italy don't have that abundance of talent maybe up top. So it is a bit of a concern, I suppose. But could that maybe open up the opportunity for Camarda from Milan to be given an outing and see what he could potentially produce? Because he's doing it at the youth levels. Look, there's no harm in giving him a cap and see what he can do. Well, Moisey scored as well. Moisey got a goal as well. He's having a quietly impressive start to the season. He's got a few goals for Fiorentina, right? 1 or 2 goals for Fiorentina, maybe. Got a goal here.
Israel were absolutely atrocious as well, by the way. Like, they were really, really bad.
Not
like,
a lot to say about that. But yeah,
no, well,
terrible.
I find it really. Obviously, the fact that they're even in the competition is disgusting. But let's analyze the football a little bit. I found it really, really funny that they were trying to get into the game because they got 2-1, right, and it was just really Italy switched off from a set piece, like didn't get the second ball, and it was a really nice finish from whoever it was, But then Israel are trying to push, right? And they're trying to get back into the game. But their idea of pushing was just violence, which may or may not be surprising to you. I don't know. But they just kept kicking Italy players and giving away free kicks. And Italy were just like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll just take another free kick.
We'll take this. Yeah, exactly.
We'll take another free kick. And I thought it was just so funny. Like, mate, this... I love that the idea of them getting back in is just like uber violence. I was like, yeah, kind of, it's on brand. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
It basically reminds you of when you're taking on the year below you and they're giving it all the lip, and then all they can do is just hack you down,
kick your ankles,
like try and score a goal, basically. So that's what it reminded me of.
It was great to see Italy get that win. I celebrated every goal very vociferously. And yes, it was good times for the Azzurri. So but more importantly, a big statement win against France, I think, is just exactly what this team needed post a pretty horrendous mood in the Euros. So everything's feeling a bit more optimistic here. I think a lot of the journalists were very, very surprised, but everyone's feeling a lot more optimistic. And as you said, Spalletti's bought himself a bit more time, because before this international break, we were talking about how much time has he got? Like, how does this go for him? So I think, still there, Luciano. Good work. But Italy weren't the only team in Italy to win. There was another team within Italy that finally, I'm not talking about the Vatican, finally, after a long, long losing streak, 141 games, I believe it was, San Marino got a 1-0 win over Liechtenstein and finally ended the world's longest competitive losing streak. Adam, you'll love to see it, right? Incredible scenes.
Beautiful scenes. Just the full-time reaction was something to marvel over. I think the thing that really brought it home to me was on the sweeper pod. We had Paul Watson, I think it was, that reminisced about the fact that San Marino have been advocating for young kids to attend their games. And in this particular kind of game, he reminisced about the fact that as the kind of full time was approaching, these kids ran out their seats, went to the sidelines, and were waiting for the full-time whistle to be blown for them to like just show their rejoice for this result. Because bear in mind, Rory, some of them have been going to these games since they've been like 4 years old, so they've probably seen a good few years of not being able to see this team win, and for them to actually just embrace that very moment was incredible. But yeah, unfortunately they weren't able to follow it up, were Rory?
No, unfortunately, they did go and lose to Moldova 1-0 immediately afterwards. But focusing on the positive story, it was Nico Sensoli who got the goal. Now, I don't know if you've seen the goal, but the goalkeeping leaves a little bit to be desired. The defending was pretty terrible. The goalkeeper dropped it, but Sensoli did manage to knock it into the net. I believe he wasn't alive the last time San Marino won a competitive game. I think he's like 17 years old. He's a very young player. But there are a few young players in San Marino that people are getting a little bit excited about in terms of, there might be something here, a spark of an ember or an ember of a spark. So yeah, huge win for them. And just a very quick shout out to their ultras, who are Brigata Mayunjoya, which is the brigade of Never a Joy, which I think they might be the most patient fans in the world. So absolutely delighted for them that they got their moment in the sunshine. If you've not listened to the Sweeper Pod in general, you should listen to it. It's very, very good. Paul Watson, previously of this parish, friend of the pod, does a fantastic job. And their live kind of reaction in San Marino, it's only about 20 minutes long, them reflecting on the game and talking about the impact, just absolutely fantastic. So would recommend that. Yeah, Andiamo Forza San Marino. Fingers crossed. They were top of their group. They were top of I think they still are top of the Nations League group. So absolutely incredible scenes. We could get Ireland against San Marino if Ireland get relegated into Group C. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm still not sure I'd fancy Ireland to get the win. But let's leave the international football there before I go down another Ireland rabbit hole. And we're going to come back and talk about the return, the glorious return of Serie A. We will see you on the other side.
Calcio is back, Serie A is back, and we've got all of the key topics to talk about this weekend, Rory. Obviously, we'll kind of start off by giving the listener, as well as those viewing right now, an opportunity to learn about the fixtures that do take place in this game week 4. So we'll start off with Saturday's fixtures at 2 p.m. GMT1, and that is Como at home to Bologna. Then at 5 p.m. we've got Empoli at home to Juventus, and then in the 7:45 p.m. kickoff we've got the big game, AC Milan at home to Venezia. Then we'll move into Sunday's game, as we've got at 11:30 Genoa at home to Roma. Then at 2 p.m. we've got Atalanta at home to Fiorentina, Torino at home to Lecce. And then we move into 5 p.m. kickoff time, where we've got Cagliari at home to Napoli. And then 7:45 for the late kickoff. A bit of a derby here, Rory. Monza at home to Inter. But we then move into our favourite fixture time of the weekend. It's back. 7:30 or 5:30, should I say? Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. 5:30 on a Monday evening. Make sure you embrace it. It's Parma at home to Udinese before we take in the 7:45 p.m. kickoff, and that is Lazio at home to Hellas Verona. So yeah, some juicy ties, it's fair to say. Maybe not as juicy as previous game weeks, Rory, but I wanted to start off by taking in the game that will take place on Saturday, and that's the late kickoff, Milan versus Venezia, in particular because before this international break, there was a lot of pressure on Fonseca. Obviously, he needs a convincing result here, Rory, because the next game is Inter. So you cannot afford to slip up against Venezia. Venezia obviously not likely to pull many things off, but if they did manage to somehow get a draw even in this game, I think it's curtains for Fonseca. Probably not also helped by what's been rumoured in the press recently, Rory. I don't know if you've seen this, but Zlatan Ibrahimovic and the Red Bird group are apparently not seeing eye to eye in terms of the approaches recently, in particular aimed at his social media activities with speed, which is the main concern. I don't know why that's the main concern, considering this is the farcical situation that Milan find themselves in right now. But yeah, it seems like there's more headaches and headaches being built up on this. Do you see Milan maybe getting a result and putting that to the side? Because I even saw Fabio Capello having another go at Rafael Leao, saying that he's got to grow up. Yeah, so if it's not on Fonseca, it's on Rafael Leao, right? So what happens here?
Milan is such a mess at the moment. It's such a it's everything seems to be going wrong. We kind of call them the Manchester United of Serie A at the moment. Everything is all noise off the pitch, and it's all drama, and a manager who nobody's convinced by, and prima donna's not performing. And it's all just going a bit wrong. Milan have to get a result here. Like, there are no excuses. Like, Venezia are not going to stay in the league this year.
No,
it's just not going to happen. So this is like one of those games where it's beyond 3 guaranteed points for Milan when they're looking at the start of the season. If you know what I mean, it's like, it's not even a consideration. It is Venezia at home, we win, right?
Yeah.
So I think that weirdly puts more pressure on it, obviously, because of the start they've had to the season, because of the real lack of quality that they've shown, that all of a sudden they have to go out and win this game now. They have to make sure they can get this done. And Venezia have got nothing to lose. But I ultimately think Milan will win this 2-3-0. It will be relatively comfortable. I think it could be the springboard that at least gives them something to head into the Derby della Madonnina. Because that's going to be beyond bruising for them when they take on Inter. So I think this game is like absolutely huge. But I think Venezia will battle bravely. Maybe Milan score in like the 65th minute, and then it just kind of crumbles a little bit. Personally, I'm hoping they get to do it because I spent a lot of money on Rafa Leao in the Fantacalcio, and I really need him to have a big season because I spent all of my money on him. So I'm really hoping this is where he kickstarts his season, even though he's actually... He's scored. Everyone hates him, but he's been all right, I think, in general. So I'm hoping this is where he gets a hat trick, obviously. Can you see Venezia mounting anything here?
I'm not fancying it. I don't think they will like pull off anything miraculous here. I think I've shared my views on Eusebio Di Francesco on this pod on many occasions. Unfortunately, I don't think he's the man to keep them up. That said, obviously Venezia haven't had a great start to the campaign. There was a lot of financial issues behind the scenes, whether they're going to be even financially stable for this season. So yeah, they're going to need a bit more reinforcements in January at this rate, Rory. I think they're going to be in a really difficult position by December. And it'll be interesting to see how many points they accumulate, because they're going to need to take points against the likes of the Yokomos, the teams that are going to be floating around them. But I just think other teams are just so much stronger than them. So this could be something of maybe a breather for Milan. They should score more goals. I did see Benasset got another injury midweek. So again, he's going to be missing, and I think he's becoming a more like a Darren Anderton figure at the moment for them, because he's just constantly injured. There was rumors of him being maybe sold on to Saudi, so it'd be fascinating to see what happens as a result of this. But yeah, I think Fonseca will get a result. Whether it's convincing is another thing, but let's wait and see, Rory. I think
Venezia's one goal this season came in the 3rd minute of the first game
against Lazio.
It's been a very, very long time since they scored already. So I feel like they could be waiting a while, unfortunately. Rough game to come back from the international break in straight into the San Siro, but Milan fans will be cautiously optimistic, I suppose. The next game we wanted to talk about, Adam, take us to it.
Yes, it is the big kind of maybe North Milan derby, so to speak. It is Monza at home to Inter, right? So we've got Alessandro Nesta in charge of Monza here. Could he deal a blow to Inter and give Milan fans something to maybe hope that could happen the following weekend? I don't know if it will happen, but yeah, obviously Monza not having a bad start to the campaign, but I think they've obviously had a few players move on. Maybe a kind of tough start on Nesta, because the games haven't been too rewarding so far, but Inter, they've got the momentum right now. They'll want to ensure that they keep that momentum going forward, especially with the derby next weekend. So they'll want to go on a high in this particular game. But do you think Monza will cause them much to fret?
Like, as you said, it's been a bit of a slow start for Nesta, kind of a 0-0, a 1-0 loss, and then 2-2. So their only game at home so far this season, they lost to Genoa. That's a game that in the past you think they would have won fairly convincingly under Palladino. So obviously he's still getting his feet under the table. I expect Inter I expect Inter to get the job done here. They tend, especially after that performance against Atalanta, right? Absolutely blew them out of the water. I know it's a relatively long time ago now, but we said at the time it felt like this team is kind of hitting its straps. They're starting to, look at the title race already, and that's why I expect them to kind of get the win here. I'm a little bit concerned for Nesta, but if you look at the games, they've not been like Empoli. Empoli away, you could win. Genoa at home, you probably should win. Fiorentina away, a draw there is decent, but they were 2-0 up, right? They were like in a very good position and threw that away. So I think it's not been the best of starts for Nesta. What do you think the main issues have been for him? Clearly, goal scoring has been an issue, and then lack of concentration in the final game.
I don't know if necessarily they've got the right personnel from a kind of attacking point of view.
Mhm.
I look at their squads, you've got likes of Daniele Maldini had a great game last game round, for example, against Fiorentina, but Caprari, I
Mm.
think he's a bit old now. Was it Juric, the kind of,
Courage, yeah.
yeah, the Zlatan fake, or the Timu kind of purchase, should we say?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just think maybe that's where they're lacking right now. I don't think he's had enough time to maybe bring the personnel that he wanted. Don't forget they did sell Kolpani as well. He was kind of a
Mm.
big statement player for them, and probably just not had enough time in the window to identify his own targets. And I think it's always going to be a problem with Mons as well. They're not a club that you can build a team. It's
Mm.
basically a foundation of players that maybe want to progress. This
Mm.
is the kind of ground that you can then move on to a bigger team potentially
Mm.
if you do well at that kind of environment. I'm surprised they didn't want to maintain Colombo, who they had on loan last season,
Yeah, yeah,
Lorenzo
yeah.
Colombo. It wouldn't surprise me actually, Rory, that come January they'd take a few loanies from
Mm.
Milan as well, given the close links between the two as well.
Mhm.
Like we've said, there's been a few of these kind of Milan players that we expect to potentially get a breakthrough this season. It'll be interesting. We'll see.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just think offensively, that's where they lack right now.
Mhm.
So let's see. But yeah, equally defensively, I think you've already highlighted that they've conceded goals this season. That's
Mhm.
probably something that Nesta will want to address very quickly because, unfortunately, if you start conceding goals, even if it's in a position where, like, for example, Fiorentina, where it was the last minute
Mhm.
of injury time, then yeah, that's concerning because that's obviously where you could have got 3 points there. So
Yeah.
potentially 2 points lost. So I think it's both ends. They need
Mm.
maybe a few reinforcements here and there.
Well, they've got the hardest game. They're coming up against the
Yes.
best team in the league. So their
Yeah.
season won't be defined by it, but it might not be a fun
No.
afternoon for any Monzese. I think that's what they
No.
call themselves. So let's go to the last game we're going to talk about. Adam, where are we going?
We are going to Bergamo because we are
Oh.
going to talk about Atalanta versus Fiorentina. The reason for that is Palladino is another manager that could be under fire right now. Not having a fantastic start, I think it's fair to say. A lot of hope with him because obviously of what he achieved at Monza, ironically. But he got the move to Fiorentina. Obviously, they've made some great signings in the process as well, but he's not necessarily utilizing them. And to the despair of Andrea from the Fiorentina fan account, he's like really lost with the fact that is this Vincenzo Italiano with a mask? This
Mm.
is just doesn't seem like it's progressed in terms of style of football. It's probably gone worse in many respects. I think this break was probably useful, and it'll be interesting to see if he adapts his kind of formation and maybe personnel, because the likes of Yassin Adli, for example, Robin Gosens, who's come back into Serie A as well. These are established players. These are players that are exciting, Rory, it's fair to say.
Mhm.
But he's not necessarily found the right kind of team or the first 11, should we say. Terracciano still being in goal in place of someone like David De Gea, who
Mm.
proved his heroics in the kind of Conference League match as well. So I think there's a lot of questions around Palladino in his approach so far. But it's not helped by the fact that he's got to go to Atalanta. Gasparini's in a very similar situation where, yeah, he's finding his feet with some new personnel in that squad mix. He made remarks about Zaniolo before the international break about, I don't know if he can rescue Zaniolo, almost like the kind of similar words that he used with Scamacca in terms of trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
give him like a morale boosting kick up the arse and say, get your game together, essentially. But yeah, Gasparini obviously comes off that kind of defeat against Torino not so long ago. And yeah, I think there's not necessarily signs to be worried about, but I think obviously not probably the best of starts for Atalanta, right, Rory?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I think the result that stands out is obviously I think the loss to Torino is the one that they'll
Mm.
feel most kind of aggrieved about. Obviously, getting slapped 4-0 away to Inter can happen, but I think like the the loss against Torino was massively avoidable, especially the fact that they took the lead and then let it slip. Well, obviously, Torino are having a good start to the season, but we've talked about Atalanta, as you said, a lot of new players, a lot of kind of creases to iron out. And this is a chance for them to do it. I think this is a real chance for them to kind of put a flag in the ground and be like, okay, our season's starting here now. Maybe a bit more time for Gasparini to kind of, that break we were talking about could be useful for De Rossi. Maybe it's useful for Gasparini to sit and think about what needed to change, how we can bring these new players in. I think this is the perfect chance for them to kind of bounce and start their season, because I'm not seeing enough from Fiorentina at the moment that's offering me much hope. I did buy De Gea in Fantacalcio, so I'm kind of hoping that he starts, but I think Palladino hasn't really decided who his first choice goalkeeper is yet. So I'll be very nervous until that lineup is announced. So thank you, Palladino. But yeah, I think Atalanta should get the job done here, kick-starting their season, because the last two games have been pretty grim for them, unfortunately.
Yes, it will be, unfortunately. However, I will just quickly talk about one quick game. It is the famous 5:30 p.m. kickoff on a Monday night. And
if there's a reason to clock out of the office early, that's it, guys.
It certainly is that one. The reason why I just want to quickly talk about that is because these are the two teams we've kind of embarked as being the surprises for the season. So one of us is going to be very disappointed by the result, I feel. But yeah, I mean, even at the same voice of saying that, Udinese are a team that I've tipped to do better this season as well. But I'll be fascinated. I think this will be quite a fun game in terms of the style of football between the two, because Costa Runic, even for Udinese, instilled a bit of good philosophy there. And Fabio Peccio with Parma, they've been a bit of fun this season already. So do you think this could be a game of goals?
I think, well, yeah, because Parma haven't got their goalkeeper, right? Suzuki's suspended, so they got their second choice goalkeeper, so that adds a little bit more drama to it. I bought him in Fantacalcio as well, hoping it's only a one-game suspension. I need to double-check that. But I think this will be a really interesting game, because there's two teams, again, that have had very encouraging starts to the season. Like, I know Parma, some of the results haven't been, but their performances have been very good. A lot of exciting players. And yeah, same for Udinese. I think this is a bit of a hipster's choice in terms of this weekend to see just exactly where they're both standing, because two exciting teams for this season, and two teams that we, as you said, earmarked for kind of to keep an eye out on. So it will be good. It will be very interesting. We will be back next week to recap all of the drama. And we hope to see you there, listener. We hope to meet you there. Adam, do you have anything to say before I send the listener home?
Just to say a massive thank you if you've already subscribed to our YouTube channel. We've reached a milestone of over 300 followers and subscribers, should I say. So thank you very much. We just want to get those humble goals even higher. So if you can encourage friends and family, whoever they may be, that have a YouTube account, just get them to follow us. And also, you're doing a superb job on Twitter, Rory, with your Gazzetta Mans, who is basically a rip-off of Barclays Mans, right? But it's the Serie A version of it. And that's the most important thing.
It is not an original idea. The culture pod deserve all of the credit, and they are all very nice people for letting us piggyback on.
Take a note, Sky Bet.
Yes, take a note. I did message them and double-check, because I overthink way too much. And I got a little bit paranoid, cold sweats about, oh my God, what if I piss off this person I don't know? But thankfully, they were very nice, and they said, go with it. So if you haven't yet, jump over to our Twitter. The polls will be continuing to find out who is the ultimate Gazettasman. My kind of secret tip for who I think is going to win is Alvaro Recoba. I think is an early favorite. Because you have to, it's a difficult bracket to reach. You can't be Francesco Totti. You're too good. It's too good. You can't have Del Piero. It needs to be someone who is a cult hero, right? Recoba, your Del Vecchios, your, I don't think Alder was in it, but your Montellas, all those, they don't have to play for Roma, but those types of players. So get over to the Twitter and give us a follow and a vote. And we'll see who gets crowned the Gazettasman. I'm going to make a video compilation for the two finalists and a winner. I'm going to attempt to do it. Please don't be too harsh on my video editing skills. I'm not very good, but hopefully it will be watchable. So guys, thank you for joining us. You can find us, as always, on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on TikTok and Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. Get all up in the comments if we've said something that you massively disagree with. You can send us abuse. It's fine. It's all interaction. It all counts. If you're listening on a podcast, go to your chosen podcast app of choice, give us a follow, give us a rating, and also send us abuse. Why not? And we will see you next episode to recap all the Serie A action even. Ciao, a dopo.
Ciao, ciao.